They drenched my cardigan with soda, laughed at my worn-out tote bag, called me trash, worthless, invisible. I was the office joke, the easy target no one defended. I told myself it didn't matter. I told myself to stay silent, to just do my job, to endure, until the elevator doors opened and my husband stepped out. Ethan Cross, the billionaire, the man who owned the very company these people worshipped, and he had come for me. In that moment, everything shifted. Their laughter died in their throats, their smug grins cracked and crumbled, and for the first time in months, I finally breathed. Sometimes the people you underestimate the most are the ones who hold the power to end your world. Have you ever been treated like you were nothing, only to reveal a truth that stunned everyone? If you were in my shoes, would you have stayed silent too? Tell me in the comments. And if you believe true worth needs no permission to shine, stay with me because this story is just getting started. My name is Lily Anderson, and until that Friday afternoon, I was just invisible. I had worked at Pinnacle Marketing Solutions for almost 6 months, tucked away in a gray cubicle, crunching numbers, finding patterns, making sense of the chaos that everyone else ignored. I loved the work. Data never lied, people did. From the start, I knew I didn't fit in. Pinnacle wasn't built for people like me. It was all sharp suits, high heels and sharper tongues, an arena for the loudest, the flashiest, the cruelest. I wore simple cardigans and old flats. I brought homemade lunches. I didn't gossip. I didn't flirt. I just worked. And for that, they hated me. It started small, a sneer here, a muttered joke there. Vanessa Blake, the Queen Bee account manager, led the charge. She laughed at my sweaters, snapped pictures of my tote bag, whispered behind my back with Chloe Park and Connor Ellis trailing close behind. They were beautiful, polished, untouchable. And me, I was the charity case, the joke that kept the office entertained during slow afternoons. I tried to ignore it. I told myself it didn't matter, that all I needed to do was stay focused, deliver my reports, meet my deadlines, and eventually they would move on. They didn't. The taunts grew bolder. The whispers turned into open ridicule. Coffee accidentally spilled across my desk. Old files dumped onto my chair. Emails sent by mistake that copied the whole floor, mocking my thrift store wardrobe. Derek Nash, my team lead, did nothing. If anything, he seemed to enjoy it. Another spectator in a crowd that loved watching the quiet girl squirm, I reminded myself I wasn't here for them. I was here because numbers made sense when nothing else did. Because I had a dream once of building something steady, something honest. What they didn't know, what they never even thought to ask, was that I had a choice. I could have snapped my fingers and ended them all. But that wasn't who I was. That wasn't why I stayed. I stayed because I believed hard work still meant something. Because I believed kindness was strength, not weakness. Because I believed maybe if I just kept my head down, things would get better. But that Friday, everything came crashing down. And the woman they thought they could break would show them just how wrong they were. That Friday started like any other. The sun barely filtered through the sleek glass walls of Pinnacle phones. Buzzed keyboards clicked. Laughter spilled from Vanessa Blake's corner. I kept my head down, focused on the spreadsheet glowing on my screen. Quarterly reports, trend projections. A language I spoke fluently. A language that never mocked me, but around mid-morning the shift began. It was subtle at first. Connor Ellis strolled past my desk, accidentally, brushing his coffee cup against my tote bag. Brown droplets bloomed across the fabric. He chuckled without an apology. Chloe Park leaned against a nearby cubicle, her phone in hand, pretending to scroll. But her camera was pointed squarely at me. I tightened my jaw, ignored them, kept typing. Vanessa sauntered by, heels clicking like a slow, mocking drumbeat. She dropped a stack of folders onto my keyboard with a loud thud. "Some busy work for you, Lily," she said sweetly. "We all know you're not doing anything important anyway." I looked down. Outdated spreadsheets, random client notes, nothing urgent, nothing real. A test, a trap. "I have my own deadlines," I said quietly, pushing the folders aside. The air shifted, the smiles sharpened. Vanessa's voice turned cold. "Oh, come on, don't act like you're too good for it. You should be grateful we even let you stay here." Connor smirked. "Yeah, Lily bus rides and thrift store specials. Don't exactly scream corporate material." Chloe giggled, snapping another photo. The room seemed to tilt. I felt the heat rising in my cheeks. felt the stares from coworkers pretending not to listen. But hanging on to every word, I willed my hands to stay steady on the keyboard, focused on the blinking cursor. Breathe in, breathe out. That should have been enough. It should have ended there, but bullies rarely stop when they smell blood. After lunch, they escalated. Vanessa strutted toward me, holding a fresh can of Coke. In one casual, deliberate motion, she popped it open and hurled it. The cold liquid exploded across my cardigan, soaking the fabric, splattering across my desk, dripping onto my reports. The office erupted. Gasps, laughter phones, lifted to capture the moment. Vanessa cupped her hand to her mouth in mock horror. Oops, thought you needed a bath trailer trash. Suits you better when it's wet. Connor kicked the leg of my chair, nearly tipping me over. Chloe howled with laughter, zooming in with her phone. Say cheese, Lily. Instagram's gonna love this. My heart pounded in my ears. My hands shook, but I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I stood up slowly, wet, humiliated, but not broken. Derek Nash leaned against his office door frame, arms crossed, watching with thinly veiled amusement. Not a word, not a warning. I knew then, no one would help me. Not here. I had two choices, collapse or rise. I chose neither. I chose the third path. The one they never saw coming. I wiped my hands calmly on a napkin, picked up my phone, and stepped into the break room with trembling fingers. I found the number I hadn't dared to call before, the one I had kept hidden like a secret weapon. I hoped I would never need Ethan Cross, my husband, the man they would never believe I knew. I hesitated, my thumb hovering over the screen. Would he be angry that I called? Would he think I was weak? The phone rang once, and then his voice. Lily, what's wrong? That was all it took. I didn't need to explain much. He heard it in my voice, the breaking, the exhaustion, the quiet surrender. Stay where you are. Ethan said, his tone steely, leaving no room for argument. I'm coming. I tucked the phone away, took a deep breath, and walked back into the lion's den, knowing that the real storm was only minutes away. I returned to my desk, my clothes still damp, my dignity shredded. Vanessa leaned against a nearby cubicle, arms crossed, a wicked smirk tugging at her lips. Back already, she mocked, her voice dripping with fake sympathy. I figured you'd be crying in the stairwell by now. Connor and Chloe hovered nearby, their faces alight with cruel amusement. Derek Nash watched from his glass office, a spectator to my humiliation. I said nothing. I sat down, I opened a blank document and stared at the blinking cursor, tick-tock. The minutes dragged, 9 of them, then the elevator dinged. At first no one paid attention, elevators opened and closed all day. It was nothing new, but when Ethan Cross stepped out, the entire office froze. Every conversation died mid-sentence, every smirk evaporated. He was impossible to ignore, 6'2", broad-shouldered, dressed in a charcoal suit that cost more than most people's cars. His dark hair was swept back, his jaw was tight, his blue eyes cold as winter steel scanned the room. And they all knew instinctively they were in trouble. Vanessa straightened up, smoothing her designer blouse. Chloe dropped her phone. Connor's mouth hung open. Ethan ignored them. He walked straight toward me, his steps slow, purposeful, deadly. He stopped in front of my desk, his voice low but carrying through the silent room. Lily, he said, you ready to go? The weight of those words crushed whatever smugness was left in the air. I looked up at him for the first time that day, the tightness in my chest loosened. I nodded. Just a minute, I whispered. I started gathering my things with steady hands, slow, deliberate. Vanessa stumbled forward, her voice suddenly high and sugary. Mr. Cross, hi, Vanessa Blake, account manager. We weren't expecting you today. Can I get you anything? Coffee, tea. She batted her lashes, fake sweetness pouring from every pore. Ethan didn't even glance at her. Instead, he turned slowly, surveyed the entire floor. Then his voice, calm and cutting, sliced through the thick silence. Who's been giving my wife a hard time? The word wife detonated like a bomb. Vanessa's face drained of color. Connor choked on nothing. Chloe dropped into her chair, her phone forgotten. Derek stumbled out of his office, tugging at his tie, eyes wide with panic. Wow, wife! Vanessa stammered, glancing between me and Ethan as if she couldn't reconcile the woman they'd spent months mocking with the billionaire standing before them. Yes. Ethan said smoothly, Lily Anderson. My wife. For 3 years. The room spun. People looked at me, really looked for the first time. Not as the charity case, not as the office punching bag, but as someone they had wildly, catastrophically underestimated. Derek shuffled forward, clearing his throat. "Mr. Cross, I'm sure there's been a misunderstanding. Lily is a valued employee." Ethan's mouth curved into a humorless smile. "Valued." He echoed, his voice dripping with disdain. "Is that why you allowed her to be mocked, insulted, and assaulted in her own workplace?" Derek paled. Vanessa tried to jump in. "We didn't know, sir. She never said anything. If she had." "Does she need to?" Ethan snapped, cutting her off. "Is it her job to beg for basic human decency?" No one answered. No one could. The room was a graveyard of shame. Ethan turned back to me, his hand gentle as he brushed a strand of hair behind my ear. "You want to stay here, love?" he asked softly. "Or are we done?" I lifted my chin, looked around at the sea of stunned, guilty faces, the same faces that had laughed while I drowned. "I'm done." I said, my voice steady. Ethan nodded once sharply. "Good," he said. Then he turned back to the office. "And so are you." His next words would change everything. Ethan faced the room, his presence towering, undeniable. Vanessa, Blake, Connor, Ellis, Chloe, Park. "Derek Nash," he said, his voice a quiet rumble. "You're fired, effective immediately." The words sliced through the air, sharp and final. Vanessa gasped, stepping back as if she had been physically struck. You can't do that," she sputtered. "This isn't your company." Ethan's lips twitched into a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "I own the board," he said coolly. "The board owns Pinnacle, which means I can do whatever I damn well please." Connor lurched forward, desperation leaking into his voice. "Come on, man, it was just a joke. We didn't mean any harm." Chloe, now pale and trembling, tried to defend herself too. "I didn't even do anything. It was all Vanessa and Connor." Derek, sweating through his shirt, raised a shaking hand. "I wasn't aware of the extent of the situation, sir. If I had known," Ethan cut him off with a single chilling look. "You knew," he said simply. "You all knew, and you did nothing. You encouraged it. You participated. You laughed." The silence in the office was suffocating. Other employees shrank back into their chairs, suddenly very interested in their screens, desperate not to draw Ethan's attention. Vanessa's mask cracked completely. She slammed her hands down on my desk, making my coffee mug rattle. "You think you're better than us now," she screeched, "hiding behind your rich husband like a coward, pretending you were one of us while you laughed at us behind our backs." Her voice was high, shrill, almost hysterical. Connor chimed in his face, twisted in anger. "Yeah, you probably married him for money. Look at you, you're nothing without him." The room watched stunned as their bitterness spilled out unchecked. I stood still, silent, unmoving. Ethan stepped forward, placing himself between me and the fury. His voice, when it came, was low and steady. "Enough." The word was like a hammer. Vanessa froze. Connor took a step back. "You don't get to rewrite the story now," Ethan said, his voice like ice. "You don't get to paint her as the villain because you're scared." He turned, looking each of them in the eye. "My wife didn't need to flaunt her wealth to be valuable. She didn't need to prove herself to anyone here. She was better than all of you the moment she walked through those doors." Vanessa opened her mouth, but no sound came out. Ethan wasn't finished. "You mocked her because she was kind. You ridiculed her because she didn't play your shallow games. You tried to tear her down because you knew deep down you could never measure up." He turned to me then, and for a moment the entire world narrowed to just the two of us. "You don't have to say a word, love," he murmured. "You never did." Security arrived, two large, impassive men in dark uniforms. Ethan nodded once. "Escort them out now." Vanessa shrieked in protest. Connor cursed, Chloe cried. Derek pleaded, but it didn't matter. The guards moved in firm and unyielding. One by one, they were marched toward the elevators. Their protests and insults bounced off the walls, but no one answered. No one cared. The rest of the office watched in stunned silence, some with pity, some with satisfaction, most with fear because they understood something now, something they hadn't grasped before. True power isn't loud. It doesn't flaunt itself. It waits, it watches, and when it strikes, it leaves nothing standing. I gathered my tote bag, the same one they had mocked, and slung it over my shoulder. Ethan offered his hand. I took it without hesitation. We walked toward the elevator together, leaving behind a room full of ghosts. I didn't look back. Not at Vanessa, not at Connor, not at Chloe, not even at Derek. They weren't worth it. I had spent months letting them make me feel small. Not anymore. The elevator doors slid shut behind us with a soft hiss sealing away the chaos we left behind. I stood there beside Ethan, the tension draining from my shoulders for the first time in months. The hum of the elevator was the only sound between us. Ethan squeezed my hand gently. "You okay?" he asked, his voice lower, now the edge of fury softened. I nodded, a small nod, but it was real. "I'm better now," I said quietly. He smiled just a little. The storm outside hadn't touched the quiet between us. When the elevator reached the lobby, we stepped out into the late afternoon light. The city buzzed around us, horns, blaring, footsteps rushing by. But I felt strangely calm, like I was finally walking through air instead of wading through quicksand. Ethan led me to his car, sleek black, polished like a mirror, and opened the door for me. The driver pulled out into traffic, the tall glass towers of downtown Chicago blurring past. For a long moment, we said nothing. Then I whispered almost to myself, I didn't want it to end like that. Ethan turned toward me, his blue eyes steady. "They ended it themselves," he said simply. "I just made sure they felt it." I looked out the window. A part of me still hurt, still ached from the months of mockery, of isolation, of silent battles no one else had seen. But another part of me, a stronger part, felt lighter. They had underestimated me, mocked me, humiliated me, and in doing so, they had revealed who they truly were, not who I was. Back at Pinnacle, the fallout was immediate. Within hours, whispers rippled through every department. Everyone knew what had happened, how Vanessa Blake, Connor, Ellis, Chloe Park, and Derek Nash had been marched out like criminals. No one defended them. No one pitied them. Resumes were quietly updated. Whispers of fear circulated about Ethan's reach, about how Cross Enterprises would blacklist anyone who had stood by and watched the abuse happen. Vanessa tried to salvage her reputation. She posted a tearful apology on LinkedIn claiming she had been misunderstood and caught up in workplace toxicity. But the comments were brutal. No one believed her. Connor bounced from one dead-end job to another, his cocky grin gone, his arrogance hollow. Chloe deleted her social media entirely. The thousands of followers she once flaunted vanished like smoke, and Derek Nash disappeared from the industry altogether. No one would touch a manager who had let harassment flourish under his watch. Meanwhile, I didn't return to Pinnacle. I didn't need to. I started working as a freelance data analyst, partnering with small businesses that valued results over appearances. I wore my cardigans, carried my old tote bag, stayed exactly who I was, and I thrived. Ethan stood by me through it all, quietly proud, never needing to boast or remind anyone who he was. Because real power doesn't shout, it simply exists. One evening, months later, we sat on the balcony of our penthouse, the city lights glittering below us. I curled into Ethan's side, a cozy sweater wrapped around me, the night air cool against my skin. "You didn't have to destroy them," I said softly, the memory still lingering like a distant echo. He pressed a kiss to my temple. "They destroyed themselves," he murmured. "I just made sure they couldn't hurt you again." I closed my eyes, breathed him in. Breathed in the life we had built, simple, strong, real. I had survived the worst of them. Not because I fought fire with fire, but because I stayed true to myself. Because no matter how much they tried to tear me down, they could never touch the part of me they couldn't see. And that in the end was everything. Months passed. The memory of Pinnacle faded into something distant, like a bad dream you wake from and never return to. I built a new life, piece by piece. Quietly, steadily, I started my own consulting firm. Nothing flashy, no big signs, no viral press releases, just honest work, helping small businesses thrive, helping people who still believed that integrity mattered, and in that quiet, I found peace. I no longer had to shrink myself to fit into spaces that weren't meant for me. I no longer had to endure the smirks, the whispers, the silent judgment. I chose where I belonged now, and who I surrounded myself with. Ethan supported me every step of the way. Not as a shield, not as a rescuer, but as a partner. Someone who had seen my worth long before the world did. Sometimes late at night, I would think about Vanessa, about Connor, about Chloe and Derek. I wondered if they ever regretted it, If they ever realized that the things they mocked, humility, patience, kindness, were the very things they lacked. But mostly, I didn't care. Their opinions, their approval, none of it had ever defined me. I had learned something they never would. Your value isn't measured by who notices you, it's measured by how true you remain when no one is watching. The quiet strength, the unshakable dignity, the refusal to let cruelty turn you cruel. That's the kind of power no one can take away. And in the end, it was the only kind that mattered. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is stay silent. Let them underestimate you. Let them laugh. Let them think they have won. Because true power doesn't need to shout. It doesn't need to prove itself. It waits. And when the moment comes, it rises quietly, unshakably, and changes everything. Lily never needed revenge. She never needed to fight dirty. She simply needed to remember who she was and let the truth speak for itself. In the end, the ones who tried to break her were the ones who shattered themselves. If you have ever been overlooked, mocked, dismissed, remember this: your worth isn't decided by the noise around you, it's carved by the choices you make when no one is watching. Stand firm, stay kind, stay true. Because real strength leaves echoes long after the shouting stops. What about you? Have you ever faced a moment like Lily did? Would you have stayed silent, or would you have fought back in a different way? Tell me your story in the comments. And if you believe quiet strength is the most powerful kind, make sure to like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to EN Reddit Story for more true stories of heart, resilience, and justice every single day.